I never thought my love story would end like this. I was just a regular guy who found what I believed was true love with Amanda. For 2 years, we shared our lives, dreams, and I thought our hearts. I planned what I believed would be the perfect proposal, a moment that would mark the beginning of our forever. Instead, it became the moment she laughed in my face. What I didn't know then was that her laughter would soon turn to screams. If you're watching this from somewhere you've been hurt too, drop a comment below. Hit like and subscribe to join me on this journey of how I turned the most humiliating moment of my life into my greatest triumph. I met Amanda 3 years ago at my college friend Tyler's birthday party. She walked in wearing a red dress that immediately caught my attention, but it was her confident smile that truly pulled me in. Something about the way she commanded the room made me want to know her better. After working up the courage to introduce myself, we spent the entire night talking about everything from our favorite movies to our childhood dreams. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. I remember being so nervous that I accidentally knocked over my water glass, soaking the tablecloth. Instead of being embarrassed, Amanda helped me clean it up, laughing in a way that made me feel at ease. That night, walking her to her door, our first kiss felt like the beginning of something real. The early months were a whirlwind of movie nights, weekend hikes, and long conversations that stretched into the early morning hours. I found myself thinking about her, constantly planning our next adventure together. By our 1-year anniversary, we decided to move in together. I still remember carrying her boxes up 3 flights of stairs to our apartment, both of us sweaty and exhausted, but excited about building our home. Amanda had a way of making ordinary moments feel special. She would leave small notes in my lunch bag before work, or surprise me with tickets to see my favorite band. When I got sick with the flu, she took 2 days off work to make me homemade soup and binge-watch sci-fi shows with me. These were the moments that made me believe she was the one I wanted to spend my life with. What I failed to notice were the subtle red flags that started appearing as our relationship progressed. The first incident that should have caught my attention was during a dinner at an upscale restaurant celebrating my promotion. The waiter accidentally brought her the wrong drink, and her reaction was disproportionately harsh. She spoke to him with such condescension that it made me uncomfortable. When I mentioned it later, she dismissed my concern, saying the staff needed to be held to high standards. Similar situations began occurring more frequently. Amanda would roll her eyes when baristas took too long with our coffee order, or leave minimal tips regardless of service quality. Her treatment of service workers became a pattern I tried to ignore, rationalizing that everyone has flaws. Then came the comments about my career. As a software developer, I earned a good living, but Amanda started making passive-aggressive remarks about my colleagues who earned more. "I bet Jake can afford to take his girlfriend to Paris," she would say after my coworker returned from vacation. Or, "Maybe you should ask for that promotion Tom got. We could use a bigger apartment." Her social media presence grew increasingly important to her. What started as occasional posts became an obsession with portraying the perfect relationship online. She would make me retake photos dozens of times until they met her standards, and would become visibly upset if a post didn't receive enough likes or comments. Perhaps most concerning was how she gradually isolated me from my support system. "Your friend Dave is so immature. I don't know why you waste time with him," she would say. Or, "Your sister only calls when she needs something from you." One by one, I found myself making excuses to avoid my friends and family, prioritizing Amanda's happiness above all else. When my mom invited us for Sunday dinner, Amanda would claim she had a headache or too much work. If I went alone, she would make me feel guilty for days afterward. "I was home all by myself while you were having fun with your family," she would pout. Slowly, my world became smaller with Amanda at its center. Despite these warning signs, I was convinced that Amanda was the woman I wanted to marry. I started saving money 6 months before the planned proposal, setting aside a portion of each paycheck for what I hoped would be the perfect ring. I calculated exactly how much I could afford without touching our emergency fund or vacation savings, wanting to be financially responsible while still getting her something special. One afternoon, I met with her best friend Jillian for coffee, hoping to get insight into what type of ring Amanda would love. "She's very particular about jewelry," Jillian warned. "She's mentioned several times that she wants at least 2 carats, preferably in a platinum setting." The price tag for such a ring was well beyond what I had budgeted, but I wanted to make Amanda happy. I extended my saving timeline by 2 months and picked up extra freelance work on weekends to afford the ring Jillian described. Next came planning the perfect proposal setting. I researched for weeks before booking a weekend at Sunset Cove Resort, an exclusive beachfront property 3 hours from our city. I reserved their romance package, which included a private candlelit dinner on the beach. After speaking with the manager, I arranged for a photographer to discreetly capture the moment when I would propose. As the day approached, my anxiety grew. I rehearsed my proposal speech in front of the mirror, trying different positions for getting down on one knee. I even practiced opening the ring box smoothly, terrified that I would fumble at the crucial moment. The night before our trip, I barely slept, running through every possible scenario in my mind. The day of the proposal, everything seemed to be aligning perfectly. The weather was ideal, warm with a gentle breeze. Amanda was in a good mood, complimenting the resort and enjoying the spa treatment I had booked for her. By evening, as we walked hand in hand toward our private dinner setup on the beach, my heart was racing. The table was decorated with roses, candles flickered in hurricane lamps, and the setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. After our main course, as the waiter discreetly stepped away, I knew it was time. My palms were sweating as I rose from my chair and took her hand. "Amanda, these past 2 years have been the happiest of my life." I began, my voice shakier than I had hoped. "You've made me a better person, and I can't imagine my future without you in it." I reached into my pocket for the ring box as I lowered myself onto one knee in the sand. Opening the box to reveal the diamond ring that had cost me thousands, I looked up at her expectantly. "Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but felt like an eternity. Amanda's expression shifted from surprise to something I couldn't quite read. Then she did the last thing I expected. She laughed. It wasn't a joyful laugh or a nervous one. It was cold and dismissive, laced with something like pity. "You really thought I would marry you?" she asked, still laughing. "Oh, Sean, this is just too much." I remained frozen on one knee, the ring box still open in my trembling hand, unable to process what was happening. "I mean, look at us realistically," she continued, her voice casual, as if discussing weekend plans rather than shattering my heart. "You're never going to make the kind of money I need. Partner track at your company, please. You don't have what it takes." Each word felt like a physical blow. As I slowly stood up, she delivered the final devastating revelation. "Besides, I've been seeing someone else. Richard understands my needs better. He's already a partner at his firm." The photographer I had hired to capture our special moment was still there, witness to my complete humiliation. I caught a glimpse of his uncomfortable expression before he quietly packed up his camera and slipped away. The drive home was excruciating. 3 hours of silence, broken only by Amanda texting on her phone, presumably with Richard. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, fighting back tears that threatened to blur my vision. By the time we reached our apartment, I felt hollow, as if something vital had been carved out of me. The days that followed were some of the darkest of my life. I couldn't bear to stay in the apartment we shared, surrounded by reminders of what I thought we had. My friend Kyle offered his couch, and I accepted, showing up at his door with just a duffel bag of clothes and the engagement ring I couldn't bring myself to return yet. "Stay as long as you need, man," Kyle said, squeezing my shoulder. "This is messed up." Sleep became elusive. I would lie awake staring at Kyle's ceiling, replaying Amanda's laughter in my mind. When exhaustion finally claimed me, I would jolt awake from nightmares, where I was still on that beach, eternally frozen on one knee. My appetite vanished. Food tasted like nothing, and most meals remained untouched. I called in sick to work for a week, unable to focus on coding while my personal life imploded. My manager was understanding, but I knew I couldn't hide forever. When well-meaning friends tried to offer advice, it bounced off me like rain on a window. "There are plenty of other women out there," they would say, or "You dodged a bullet." Their words, though kind, couldn't penetrate the fog of my grief. None of them could understand how completely I had built my future around Amanda. What confused me most was that Amanda hadn't moved out of our apartment. I was the one sleeping on a couch while she remained in the home we had created together. I assumed she would leave quickly to be with Richard, but according to Kyle, who drove by one day, her car was still in our assigned parking spot. 10 days after the disastrous proposal, I received a text from Jillian that would begin unraveling everything. "We need to talk about Amanda," her message read. "There's a lot you don't know. We met at a coffee shop downtown, far from anywhere Amanda might appear." Jillian looked nervous, fidgeting with her cup as I sat down. "I should have told you earlier," she began, "but Amanda swore me to secrecy. She's been seeing her boss Richard for at least 4 months. I thought it was just a fling at first, something that would blow over." The timeline hit me hard. 4 months meant Amanda had been cheating almost the entire time I was saving for her ring. "There's more," Jillian continued. "The day I helped you pick out her ring, she had already shown me the bracelet Richard bought her. She knew you were planning to propose." The betrayal cut deeper. Amanda had known my intentions and let me continue planning, spending, hoping, all while seeing someone else. But Jillian wasn't finished. "I think you should check your finances, Sean. Amanda has been shopping a lot lately. Designer bags, shoes, things I know she can't afford on her salary." This advice prompted me to review my bank statements that evening. What I found sent a chill through me. Over the past 6 months, there had been numerous cash withdrawals from my savings account that I hadn't made, usually on days I worked late. The pattern was unmistakable once I looked for it. Small amounts at first, $100 or $200, gradually increasing to $500 or more. I dug deeper, pulling up credit card statements. There were charges for restaurants I had never visited, boutique shopping sprees, and even a weekend spa retreat, all during times Amanda had claimed to be working or visiting her parents. When I calculated the total amount, I felt physically ill. Nearly $30,000 had disappeared. The next shock came when my landlord called, confused about why our rent hadn't been paid for 3 months. "But I've been giving Amanda the money each month," I explained, my stomach sinking. "Well, it hasn't reached us," he replied. "You're at risk of eviction if it's not paid immediately." Similar calls followed from utility companies. Our electricity was about to be shut off. The internet had been paid with last-minute minimum payments. All this time, I had trusted Amanda to handle these bills, transferring my share to our joint account faithfully. The final revelation came when I checked my credit report. There were 3 credit cards opened in my name that I knew nothing about, all maxed out to their limits. Someone had used my social security number and personal information to open these accounts. Someone who had access to all my documents. Amanda. Overwhelmed and unsure what to do, I followed Kyle's advice and scheduled a consultation with his cousin Jessica, an attorney specializing in financial fraud. Jessica's office was small, but immaculate, with law degrees and certifications covering one wall. She listened intently as I detailed everything I had discovered, occasionally taking notes. "What you're describing is unfortunately more common than you might think," she said when I finished. "Identity theft by intimate partners is an increasing problem, especially when relationships end." She explained that I would need to take immediate action on multiple fronts, filing a police report for the identity theft, disputing the fraudulent credit cards with the credit bureaus, and documenting every unauthorized transaction from my accounts. "Gather all the evidence you can," Jessica advised. "Bank statements, credit card bills, rent receipts, anything that shows money was taken without your knowledge or consent. We'll need a paper trail to prove these were not gifts or shared expenses." Over the next 2 days, I created detailed spreadsheets, tracking every suspicious transaction, printed statements, and compiled a comprehensive file of evidence. Jessica helped me file a police report, carefully documenting the identity theft aspect of Amanda's actions. "Now," Jessica said, after we had completed the initial legal steps, "we need to confront Amanda directly. Not for reconciliation, but to put her on notice that her actions have legal consequences." She helped me script what to say, emphasizing that I should remain calm and factual. "Record the conversation legally by informing her, 'You're recording,' Jessica advised. Her reaction could be valuable evidence." Armed with my evidence, a recording device, and a new sense of purpose that had replaced my heartbreak with resolve, I prepared to confront the woman who had not only rejected me, but systematically defrauded me. I spent the entire morning preparing for the confrontation. The bank's fraud department had provided me with detailed reports of all the unauthorized withdrawals, complete with timestamps and ATM locations. I organized everything chronologically in a binder with color-coded tabs, separating different types of fraud, bank withdrawals, credit card charges, unpaid bills, and fraudulent accounts. Jessica had coached me through various scenarios, helping me anticipate Amanda's potential reactions and how to respond without escalating the situation. "Your goal is documentation, not vindication," she reminded me. "Stay focused on the facts, not the emotions." I practiced what I would say, rehearsing my opening statement until I could deliver it without my voice shaking. The devastated, rejected boyfriend was gone. In his place stood someone determined to reclaim what was rightfully his, both financially and in terms of personal dignity. After confirming with Kyle that he had seen Amanda's car at our apartment, I drove there with my heart hammering in my chest. Using my key, I entered what had once been our shared home. The living room looked different. New throw pillows, an expensive-looking vase I had never seen before, shopping bags from luxury stores scattered across the floor. Amanda emerged from the bedroom freezing when she saw me. She was dressed in designer clothes, a shopping bag still dangling from her hand. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone immediately defensive. "You can't just walk in unannounced." "I still pay rent here," I replied evenly, setting my binder on the coffee table. "Actually, that's part of why I'm here. I'm recording this conversation for legal purposes." I placed my phone visibly on the table, the recording app running. "Recording. What is this about?" Her eyes narrowed, but I noticed a flicker of unease. "Amanda, I know about the money," I said calmly. "I know about the unpaid rent, the utilities, the cash withdrawals from my accounts. I know about the credit cards opened in my name." Her expression shifted rapidly. Surprise, then calculation, then an attempt at innocence. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, setting down her shopping bag. "We share expenses. That's what couples do." I opened my binder and removed the first document, a statement, showing 3 months of unpaid rent, despite my transfers to our joint account. "The landlord is threatening eviction," I said, sliding the paper toward her. "The money I transferred for rent. Where did it go?" She glanced at the document but didn't touch it. "There must be some mistake. I paid the rent." "No, you didn't," I continued, remaining calm. "Just like you didn't pay the electric bill, the water bill, or the internet. But you did spend $4,000 at Nordstrom last month." I placed the credit card statement showing purchases I had never authorized next to the rent notice. With each document I presented, Amanda's confident facade cracked further. When I reached the credit report showing accounts opened fraudulently in my name, her strategy changed. "We were building a life together," she said, suddenly soft, attempting to touch my arm. "Everything I did was for us, for our future." I stepped back from her touch. "Including dating Richard. Was that for our future too?" The mention of Richard's name caused a visible reaction. "That's different," she muttered. "You don't understand." "I understand identity theft," I replied. "I understand fraud. The police understand it too." I pulled out the police report I had filed, showing her the case number. That was when Amanda's demeanor transformed completely. The manipulative charm vanished, replaced by panicked anger. "You went to the police?" Her voice rose sharply. "Are you insane? Do you know what this could do to my career?" "Probably the same thing it did to my credit score," I answered, maintaining my composure. "I'm giving you one chance to make arrangements to repay everything you took. Otherwise, I'll be pursuing this case to the fullest extent possible." She began pacing, her breathing quick and shallow. "You can't prove anything. It was our money, our relationship." "Actually, I can prove everything I said," gesturing to the binder full of evidence. "ATM cameras, purchase receipts, credit applications with forged signatures. Jessica says we have a very strong case." The mention of my lawyer seemed to be the final straw. Amanda's face contorted with rage and panic. "You ungrateful, pathetic loser," she screamed, her voice so loud it probably reached the neighboring apartments. "I gave you 2 years of my life. I could have been with Richard the whole time." I remained silent, letting her tirade continue, knowing the recording was capturing every self-incriminating word. "You think Richard wants me now?" she shrieked, tears streaming down her face, smearing her makeup. "He dumped me when he found out you were proposing. Said he didn't sign up for drama." This revelation surprised me, but I kept my expression neutral. Amanda had lost both of her options, the stable boyfriend she was defrauding and the wealthy boss she was cheating with. "You've ruined everything," she screamed, grabbing one of the new throw pillows and hurling it across the room. "I hate you. I hate you." I calmly collected my evidence, stopped the recording and headed toward the door. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about repayment arrangements," I said. "I suggest you get your own attorney." As I closed the door behind me, her screams continued, but they no longer had power over me. For the first time since that night on the beach, I felt a sense of control returning to my life. The legal process moved more quickly than I expected. With the recording of Amanda's meltdown, the comprehensive financial evidence, and the police report, the case was clear-cut. The district attorney decided to pursue charges for identity theft and fraud. Amanda, desperate to avoid criminal prosecution, attempted to make deals through her hastily hired attorney. She offered partial repayment and tearful apologies, but the DA had seen too many similar cases to be swayed by remorse that came only after being caught. When Richard was subpoenaed to testify about their relationship and any knowledge of the fraud, he distanced himself completely from Amanda. "We had a brief affair that I deeply regret," his statement read. "I had no knowledge of any financial impropriety and would never have condoned such actions." The court granted me a restraining order against Amanda when her messages turned threatening after the confrontation. She was prohibited from contacting me or coming within 100 yards of my home workplace or any place I regularly visited. In an unexpected development, Amanda's parents reached out to me through Jessica. They had been shocked by their daughter's actions and wanted to express their regret. "We didn't raise her to behave this way," her father said when we met at Jessica's office. "We're mortified and so sorry for what you've endured." They offered to help with the restitution payments, explaining that they had always tried to give Amanda everything she wanted, perhaps to her detriment. While I appreciated their gesture, I declined their offer. This was Amanda's debt to repay, not theirs. With the legal proceedings underway, I turned my attention to repairing my financial situation. The process was tedious, but necessary. I spent hours on the phone with credit bureaus filing disputes for the fraudulent accounts and charges. Each required detailed documentation and follow-up. The banks were surprisingly helpful once I provided the police report and case number. They reversed the unauthorized withdrawals, though the process took several weeks of persistent follow-up. The credit card companies were more resistant, requiring affidavits and multiple reviews, but eventually removed the fraudulent accounts from my record. Collection agencies that had begun calling about the unpaid bills backed off when I provided documentation showing I was a victim of fraud. The landlord, once presented with evidence that I had attempted to pay the rent, worked out a payment plan that allowed me to avoid eviction while catching up on the arrears. To protect myself from future financial betrayal, I implemented new safeguards. I placed a freeze on my credit, requiring my explicit permission before any new accounts could be opened. I set up alerts for any withdrawals or charges above a certain threshold. And perhaps most importantly, I opened new accounts at a different bank, ensuring Amanda had no way to access my funds. Slowly, with each financial fire extinguished, I began to rebuild the foundation of my life that Amanda had so thoroughly undermined. The journey toward healing began with finding a new place to live. After settling the issues with my former landlord, I searched for an apartment that would represent a fresh start. I found a one-bedroom unit in a secure building with a doorman, on the added security giving me peace of mind that Amanda could not show up unannounced. Moving day was cathartic. Kyle and several other friends I had reconnected with helped carry furniture and boxes. These were relationships Amanda had tried to sabotage, friendships I was now rebuilding. As we shared pizza and beer after everything was in place, I felt the first genuine laughter escape me in months. To new beginnings, Kyle toasted raising his beer bottle. Everyone clinked bottles, and I felt a surge of gratitude for these people who had stood by me through the darkness. The process of reclaiming my social life continued as I reached out to friends I had neglected during my relationship with Amanda. Many were more understanding than I deserved, welcoming me back without resentment. Dave, whom Amanda had particularly disliked, organized a weekend camping trip that helped clear my mind amidst nature and camaraderie. My family had always seen through Amanda's facade, though they had kept their reservations mostly to themselves. Now Sunday dinners at my parents' house became a regular tradition again. My sister Megan, who had tried to warn me about Amanda subtly, never said "I told you so," instead focusing on helping me move forward. "You know what this calls for," she said one evening. "A new hobby, something you always wanted to try but never did." Taking her advice, I signed up for rock climbing lessons at a local gym. The physical challenge provided an outlet for stress, while the mental focus required kept me present rather than dwelling on the past. Each new route conquered became a metaphor for overcoming obstacles in my recovery. Professional help proved invaluable. I found a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma, Dr. Marshall. Our weekly sessions helped me process not just the relationship's end, but the systematic financial abuse that had accompanied it. "What you experienced was a form of intimate partner abuse," Dr. Marshall explained. "Financial abuse often goes unrecognized, but can be just as damaging as other forms." These sessions helped me understand that Amanda's actions reflected her issues, not my worth. I learned to identify the red flags I had ignored and to establish healthier boundaries for future relationships. Work became another anchor in my recovery. I had worried that my extended absence and distraction might have jeopardized my position, but my manager Jordan proved supportive. "Take the time you need," he said. "Your work has always been excellent. This situation doesn't change that." To thank him for his understanding, I threw myself back into projects with renewed focus. Coding provided a sense of control and accomplishment that had been stripped from my personal life. 6 months after the proposal disaster, I was assigned to lead a new development team, a promotion that significantly increased my salary and responsibilities. Perhaps the most unexpected aspect of healing came through a support group for victims of financial fraud. Jessica had recommended it, suggesting that sharing experiences with others who truly understood could be therapeutic. The group met monthly in a community center downtown. There I met people from all walks of life who had experienced similar betrayals: spouses, parents, children, even business partners who had abused financial trust. The hardest part, shared Maria, a woman whose husband had accumulated gambling debts in her name, is that the financial recovery is just numbers. The trust issues last much longer. The nodding heads around the room confirmed this universal truth. In that circle, I found validation and practical advice that accelerated both my financial and emotional recovery. Through all these channels of healing, I discovered several unexpected silver linings to my painful experience. My financial literacy improved dramatically out of necessity. I now understood credit reports, investment strategies, and banking protections in ways I never had before. This knowledge gave me confidence in managing my money and planning for the future. My boundaries became stronger and clearer. I learned to trust my instincts about people's character, rather than dismissing uncomfortable feelings. When a colleague made a slightly unethical suggestion on a project, I found myself speaking up immediately, rather than silently compromising my values. The friendships that survived Amanda's attempt to isolate me grew deeper than before. There's nothing like crisis to reveal who truly stands by you. Kyle, who had given me a place to stay during my darkest days, became more like a brother than a friend. Our weekly basketball games became a cornerstone of my social calendar, providing both exercise and male bonding time that I had neglected during my relationship. My family relationships also flourished with renewed attention. My mother's cooking, which Amanda had often criticized as too simple, became a comfort I looked forward to weekly. Dad and I restored a vintage motorcycle together, a project that gave us hours of quality time in his garage, often working in comfortable silence, punctuated by the occasional request for a tool or appreciative whistle at progress made. Perhaps most significantly, I developed a new appreciation for my own company. Before Amanda, I had been someone who feared being alone. Now I discovered the peace of solitary hikes, the satisfaction of reading an entire book in one sitting, the simple pleasure of cooking an elaborate meal just for myself. Self-sufficiency became not just a necessity but a source of pride. 1 year after the proposal that had ended so disastrously, my life had transformed in ways I could never have predicted. My financial situation was nearly restored. The court had ordered Amanda to make restitution payments, which arrived monthly with surprising consistency. The credit bureaus had removed the fraudulent accounts from my record, and my credit score was climbing steadily back to where it had been. As for Amanda, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had pleaded guilty to reduced charges, resulting in probation, community service, and mandatory financial counseling rather than jail time. She had moved to another state for a fresh start, her career in finance, understandably damaged by her actions. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only a distant hope that she would get the help she needed. My own perspective on dating had evolved dramatically. I was no longer searching desperately for someone to complete me, but approaching relationships with healthy skepticism and self-respect. I had gone on a few casual dates, making it clear I was taking things slowly. One woman, Julia, a librarian I met at a friend's gallery opening, seemed particularly promising with her straightforward manner and evident integrity. The promotion at work had opened new professional avenues. I was now leading a team developing applications for nonprofit organizations, finding meaning in creating tools that helped others. The increased income allowed me to begin saving again, this time for a trip to Japan I had always dreamed of taking. I purchased the tickets on the anniversary of the proposal, a deliberate reclaiming of that date. Looking back on the painful journey, I recognized how much wisdom I had gained through suffering. I had learned that authentic love doesn't require you to diminish yourself or abandon your boundaries. Real partnership is built on mutual respect and honesty, not manipulation and control. The red flags I had ignored with Amanda now served as valuable warning signs for the future. I understood that how someone treats service workers, how they react when told no, and how they speak about former partners reveals more about their character than any romantic gesture. Financial intimacy, I discovered, requires the same trust and transparency as emotional intimacy. Money conversations are not unromantic, but necessary foundations for any serious relationship. I would never again hand over financial control without clear agreements and regular check-ins. Perhaps most importantly, I learned the strength that comes from vulnerability and asking for help. The old me had tried to handle everything alone, seeing dependence on others as weakness. The new me understood that human connection is our greatest resource in times of crisis. Without Kyle's couch, Jessica's expertise, Dr. Marshall's guidance, and the support group's wisdom, my recovery would have taken much longer and been far more painful. The freedom I found after escaping a toxic relationship was worth every moment of heartbreak. Like a snake shedding an outgrown skin, I had emerged newer and stronger. The rejection that had once seemed like the end of my world had actually been the beginning of a better one. If you have ever experienced betrayal or financial abuse, know that you are not alone. The road to recovery might seem impossibly long at first, but each step forward matters. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after trusting the wrong person? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to connect with others who are transforming pain into growth. And remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength on your own journey, whatever path you may be walking.